If you want to see all 7 looks that I created using the Sultry palette from ABH, then stick around. Hi there, it's Hélène and welcome back, or if it's your first time, welcome to HMM Makeup or Makeup. We are definitely talking about this palette today. I promised a lookbook and boy am I going to deliver today. I did a total of 7 looks with this palette. I took pictures of each one of the looks. This is look number 7 and I'm going to go from the first look to this look. That's what we'll finish on today. And I just want to take a minute though before I get into the looks to talk about this palette in general. If you have been watching this channel for a while or you've taken a look at my Anastasia Beverly Hills videos so far, you would know that I'm a big fan of the ABH formula, all the way from Subculture to the Norvina 1 and 4 palettes, to the various collabs that have happened of recent in the last year or two, the Bible, the Ina, the Edwards, a bunch of different palettes that have come out. I have virtually all of them. And this one was one that was missing from my collection. And I'm very, very happy that I decided this last Christmas to pick it up as part of one of their vaults. And really, really quite happy with it. Just get rid of the brush. Now, I did do all of the looks I'm going to show you, I did do with this brush. The only exception was for the brow bone, I used kind of a flat, fluffy brush. And then on the very, very inner corner, I used my multitasker brush from Smashbox, which is my go-to when I want precision on the inner lid. Everything else, though, for a look other than applying liner, I used this brush. When I say liner, is using some of these eyeshadows as liners for the eye on the upper lash line or lower lash line. So this was a shadow brush specifically. I have no problem with ABH brushes. I think that they do a fine job for creating looks. And I would have no problem during a trip to pretty much rely on this brush alone to do the looks that I've done. Now let's take a look at the palette. This is what it looks like. I think a lot of us are familiar with this palette. And when I look at this palette, there are definite go-tos. Fresh up here was used for the brow bone virtually every single time. Dystopian, either dystopian or noir, were both used to deepen up some eyeshadows, and dystopian I also used on its own as a crease and outer lid color and outer lower lid color. Noir I used a lot to deepen up either slate or twig, and I also used dystopian to deepen up twig and birch. Where's birch? Birch up here as well. Dystopian to deepen up birch, or noir to deepen up birch. Every other color that is metallic or shimmer, I did not use any other color to deepen or modify. They pretty much were standalone pops that made up a look. I think I've covered everything. I did think of using dystopian in the brow, but I didn't end up trying that. I think because it's quite saturated as a color, same thing with noir, and I thought that would just make for brows that were way too dramatic, and so I decided to dispense with that, but maybe at some point I will try. I just didn't want to wreck any of the looks I made for you, so that's why I kind of steered clear. But maybe I'll do it at some other point when in a situation where the brows would not be so distracting to take away from the makeup look, the eyeshadow look. Okay, I've talked enough. Let's get into the looks. Ironically enough, the first 2 looks, the first look was very heavy on Bloom, and the second look was very heavy on Cyborg. And if you're not familiar, Bloom is this one, and Cyborg is this one. They are, out of the whole thing, they are my favorites. And probably because they are edgier and more dramatic than any of the other looks that I'll show you. But I wanted to make a total of 7 looks that were relatively wearable for anyone. So I think the first 2 looks and then this look here are the edgier ones compared to everything else I'm going to show you. So let's start showing you some pictures here on the video. So first I'm going to go with the Bloom look. I'll have it right here for you. Let's talk through it. So obviously I used Bloom quite a bit. So I used Bloom in the crease, outer lid, and outer lower lid. So this was by far the primary color. I used Fresh on the brow bone, as I did for virtually every look, and I also used Fresh on the very inner lid. Then I used Pearl, which is here, Pearl on the inner lid all the way to 2/3 of the lid. And then I used Noir with essentially a brow brush to do liner on the lower lid and upper lid. And I was shocked by how precise and saturated I could make Noir look. You would have sworn that I was using either a liquid liner or a very precise powder liner on the upper and lower lids. I was really impressed. You can see in the picture how crisp the liner looks. That is just Noir. I did not use another liner except for Zero on the upper waterline, which I couldn't have used Noir to do anyway. So I really, really enjoyed that first look. Now for the second look, it was Slate in the crease, outer lid and outer lower lid. Then Cyborg was the one that I used on the inner to 2/3 of the lid, and it really helped to make the look pop. And then I used Noir to deepen Slate a little bit, and also deepen Slate on the outer lid, and also used it as a liner on the upper lash line and lower lash line, because I really liked what I was able to do with the Bloom look, that I ended up doing it as well on the Slate and Cyborg look, and really enjoyed that. Just a quick interruption. If you have not given this video a thumbs up yet, and or if you have not subscribed yet, I would strongly suggest doing so if you like what you have seen so far. And without further ado, let's get back to the video. And then I thought, okay, I've done 2 edgier looks. Depends on what you think is edgy. Some people would definitely consider those 2 edgy. I decided to do some that were more mainstream, office appropriate, no matter who you are, that kind of a thing. So let's take a look at those. So now we're talking look number 3. And look number 3, I used Twig in the crease, outer lid, and outer lower lid. Then I used Dystopian on the outer lid and outer crease, and also on the upper lash line and lower lash line. So I ended up trying out Dystopian as a liner as well. And it was, it was a softer liner, but I think it did a good job anyway. And then I decided to use Steampunk, which is, when I did the swatches, I was really excited about this color, and it was quite a nice color to use. And I used it on the inner to 2/3 of the lid, and then I used Fresh on the brow bone, pretty much just like I did for every other look. Steampunk is quite a nice color, and I think that you get a very appropriate look, but still with that richness, kind of a real eye-catching shade. And so I am not surprised that I am really enjoying that shadow. We're getting into look number 4. So let's take a look at that. So for look number 4, I used Birch. Finally got into Birch in a more serious way here. So Birch was on the inner corner in the crease, outer lid, and outer lower lid. Then I used Noir to deepen up Birch on the outer lid and on the outer lower lid. Then I used Cinder, which is right here. I used Cinder on the center lid and then on the lower center lid. And that's the only look where I did that. And really wanted the center lid and center lower lid to kind of have a little bit more, add a little bit more depth to the eye look by kind of bringing the eye out compared to the deepened outer lid. So that was kind of nice. And then Noir was also the liner on the upper and lower lash line for this. And Fresh, of course, again, on the brow bone. I don't know why I keep forgetting where Fresh is. Anyway, I thought that it was an interesting look, but it didn't have as much oomph as I would normally look for in an eye look, but I thought certainly for someone who wants to try a center of the lid pop but is worried about too much contrast, I think that Cinder did a good job. And it's basically a brown with some shimmer to it without being overly bold as a color. I think that if I had tried that with Cyborg, it would really show a whole lot more depth, a whole lot more edginess than Cinder did. And so if you just want to try that kind of an eye look, I think that you would feel that it wasn't too much if it's a first attempt at that kind of a look. Now let's take a look at look number 5. So for look number 5, of course, I used Fresh on the brow bone, and then I used Twig in the crease, outer lid, and outer lower lid, and then Dystopian, I'm getting better at this, on the outer lid, outer crease, and outer lower lash line. So that was just Twig to set up the crease, the kind of the dimension to the eye, Dystopian to deepen the look, and then I ended up using Rose Quartz right here, Rose Quartz on the inner to 2/3 of the lid, and I thought that that looked pretty darned good. Rose Quartz is one of those colors that tends to be very flattering. It has kind of a romantic look to it, and doing inner to 2/3 of the lid is going to look great on virtually everyone. It's kind of a fail-safe, foolproof kind of a look. And so Rose Quartz pretty much paired up with any of the mattes is going to look really, really nice. Now let's go for look number 6. Okay, so for look number 6, I used Birch. So I got much more into Birch toward the end. But Birch is one of those that I didn't think I would like, and I ended up not minding this kind of caramelly to camo kind of color. I used that one on the outer lid, outer crease, and outer lower lid. Then I went into Dystopian on the outer lid, outer crease, and lower lash line. And that was in part to deepen up Birch a little bit. Fresh on the brow bone, of course, again. And then Ember on the inner to 2/3 of the lid. There we go. Inner to 2/3 of the lid. And then used Teak on the center lid. And I really enjoyed that look quite a bit. So just a little bit different. Teak, I felt, had kind of an orangey hue, and that it would play off nicely with Ember kind of giving a recessed look, and Teak kind of bringing the eye forward. So eyelid obviously forward. So I enjoyed that look quite a bit. And then finally, for the 7th look, the look that I am wearing today, I have Twig in the crease, outer lid, and outer lower lid. Then I have Dystopian on the lower lash line, and I did add on Crash as a liner on the lower waterline, and Crash is an Urban Decay liner, and I think that that looks pretty good. And then I have Fresh on the brow bone, And then finally, I have Bloom on the inner to half the lid. And then I did a center pop with rose quartz. I think that, yeah, there we go. With rose quartz. And I really, really like that effect. So I kind of softened into rose quartz as the center lid and softened back up. So kind of tried to have a bit of a gradient from Bloom to rose quartz and then rose quartz out to twig. And I resisted the desire to deepen twig because I kind of wanted the Bloom to be the punchiest color in the look. And I felt like if I went here and deepened with dystopian or noir, that I would take away from the interest of the pinky peach more towards the inner to center lid. Those are my 7 looks for this lookbook with the Sultry. If you have some go-to looks with this palette, I would love it if you would let us know what your favorite combos are. I obviously did not exhaust all of the options here because there are so many shimmers. 2, 4, 6, is it 7? Yeah, 4, 7 shimmers is quite a bit. And really I did not feel like there was that much repetition for in the mattes as well. I felt like all the mattes were quite different. And if there's one thing that I sort of regret with this palette is I feel like I could have used slate more. But I felt that that cyborg look that I did right up front kind of used that gray tone set of shadows quite a bit. And I thought that most of the palette is definitely not monochromatic, and so I didn't want to do too much with the black, gray, and silver because I thought that that might be a little bit repetitious. Hopefully, I did the palette justice. Hopefully, you got some ideas on how to use the Sultry, whether you have it or if you're hoping to nab it next time it shows up, if it shows up as a limited edition release again. I really do hope that ABH will consider making this palette a permanent palette in the collection, even if it just shows up during the holidays, for a couple of reasons. I definitely thought when I was using this palette that this would be a great palette for me to leave at the office, because I can do pretty much anything I want, from a little bit of an edgier look to a very, somebody thinks your eyes look great, but they're not focused on any sort of color. Your eyes just look great. Very professional or just put together. And I really felt that this palette would do it, and that it also, I thought of the office as well, because you can do a really nice look in 5 minutes. Really. This palette was effortless. It makes me think of my Smashbox Matte Exposure palette that I virtually panned completely over the last 3 years. It's a no-brainer palette. This also feels like a no-brainer palette. The only big difference between it and the Smashbox Matte Exposure is that the Smashbox Matte Exposure is only matte colors. And in this case, half is very nice, shimmery, rich colors. Love all the mattes in here, and I do appreciate all of the shimmers. I think that there could have been a little bit more variety in the shimmers. So for example, I find these are not that different from each other, as an example. I also did not feel like Steampunk and Ember were that different from each other, but I mean, that's just personal preference. I do think that Pearl does pack quite a punch, and I'm quite happy with that. And I think that Rose Quartz is kind of, if you do have a lot of ABH palettes, I think that kind of shimmery rose shows up on a regular basis. So I don't think that that's quite all that unique to to the Sultry. But that's it. That is what I have to say about the palette. Those are the looks I created for you. And if you have favorite combos, if I haven't mentioned it already, please leave me those combos. Leave us as a collective. I'm going to sound like Jen Love's channel. If you have some go-to combos, I would love to hear it, as I'm sure a number of other people watching these videos. So that is it from me. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it every single time, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. But for now, take care.